Plank. Presented by Jeep. Starts now.
Well, that music can only mean one thing. We're back for a second season of The Plank exclusively on our free ABC Action News app and streaming live on abcactionnews.com. Hello, everyone. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Laura Harris in for Tom because Corin is on the golf course.
Tom is golfing right now in Michigan. We're going to check in with him in a little bit, but here's how you can connect with us using Twitter and joining the conversation using the hashtag Plank. We're going to be talking about Buccaneers football every Monday at noon right here on abcactionnews.com. You can tweet at my Twitter handle, John_Sable, and then there's Laura Harris's Twitter handle as well. And also, we're going to be taking some of your phone calls. We want to hear you. I know Buccaneer fans, you guys are frustrated. Yesterday's debacle at Ray J, there's a number right there, 813-878-2888. So without further ado, let's go to Michigan right now and check in with our Tom Corn. And Tom, you are on the golf course right now just making the turn to hole number 10. We won't keep you too long, but we got to get in touch with you and get your input yesterday's Jameis Winston's debut.
Do we have to do this?
You know, TK, the bosses are telling us we have
really?
to.
This is a fact.
Let me tell you, let everybody that's listening right now. You know, I was overruled yesterday. I've got 7 other guys up here. The overruled wanted to play golf, and I wanted to, check the game out. And so we decided to play golf, and we didn't check the score until about the 4th quarter. And then when I heard it was like 42-7, whatever it was, there was a lot of guys that would have been really mad at me if we had given up golf yesterday to watch that. And I'll tell you what, what can you say? Mariota comes out first drive, touchdown, and then you get the X factor with Jameis Winston, and he throws that pick, and then they run it back. It just set the whole tempo. It was horrendous. There's one thing about losing, but getting yourself creamed, and that's what happened. They got creamed.
Tom, what was the most glaring factor when you watched these highlights that was a concern to you? Was it the fact that Winston made rookie mistake, or was it the defense?
I just think defense. They had a couple. They had a fumble recovery that was nice. They had a couple of sacks. That's nice. But 42. They hung 42 up there, of which 35 were scored. Won by the defense. So I think the defense. There's far more veterans on that defense. That touchdown pass, that's unacceptable. That first one. I can't believe that he found a zone in the middle there when you've got a drop back linebacker, and it happened. And I'm just, I should be shaking my head, and so is everybody else.
Tom, a lot of people are doing the comparison right now. Marcus Mariota versus Jameis Winston. You look at these numbers from yesterday's game, and you say, was that really the number 1 pick out there?
Well, let's put one thing. Jameis had a rough start. He did throw a couple of touchdowns. He did some good things, but let's face it, Mariota was more consistent. Mariota looked more poised, and he did make mistakes. So give it to Mariota. That's 1 game out of 16. He may end up being the better quarterback this year, but we're not going to know because this is a long season, kids, and hopefully it's not too long, and we're not going to see much more of what we just saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again. At least let's hope not. TK, we're going to let you go, get back to your golf game. We'll check back in with you next week. You'll join me, and we'll talk about the Saints game. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better than this.
Okay, great. I'm just about ready to tee off now, and I appreciate you bothering me.
Anytime. We'll be sure to do it next time. All right.
We love you all.
All right. Safe travels back here to the Bay. All right, let's get over to the Plank Report, sponsored by Jeep. And for that, we're going to go to the man who knows the Buccaneers more than anybody, and that's Greg Allman of the Tampa Bay Times, Bucs beat writer. And Laura, Greg knows so much about the Buccaneers. I see him all the time when we're over there. He is one of the best guys. If you don't follow him at all on Twitter, you better do it because Greg pretty much knows the ins and outs of everything going on with the Buccaneers. And I'm anxious to hear what Greg has to say. Greg, how you doing?
Doing well, John. How are you?
Doing well. Could it be better if we were talking about a win, of course? But, Greg, what are your first reactions to last night's loss? You've had a night to sleep on it. You've had a night to really kind of digest everything. What is going through your mind when it comes to this team right now?
Yeah, you just kind of saw the air sucked out of the locker room there. I think they had so much. Lumpy does a good job of getting these guys very positive, very optimistic, very hopeful, and then to come out and have things go as terribly as it did, especially the first quarter, really, the first even 7-8 minutes of the game, and especially on defense. I think most people expected Jameis would have, stumbles early and issues early. The defense, Tennessee with a rookie quarterback had 5 touchdowns in their first 6 drives against this defense. So what it does is that, a lot of people thought this was the easiest game on their schedule. You're at home. You're against a team that won 2 games last year. So for you not only to not win it, but to lose it by 28, you get back to that point they were last year, where you wonder which games you can circle as wins on the schedule the rest of the way.
And Greg, as I was watching the game last night, I felt like the Titans were reading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense almost like a children's book. It seemed like they knew everywhere they were going to go, everywhere Jameis was going to throw the ball. Our secondary looked completely asleep the entire game. What are your thoughts on, they've got 6 days to turn this thing around before they actually have to play the Saints. Is it even possible?
Yeah. Right. Well, the problem is, this first game, you always talk about having so much time to prepare for one opponent. They've known they were playing Tennessee their entire offseason. And like you said, the Titans seem so much more well-prepared on both sides of the ball in terms of knowing where to find the holes in this defense. See Mariota go 13 for 16, just picking them apart. And then to have the defense be able to kind of eliminate Vincent Jackson, take away some of the run, get pressure on Jameis Winston. They just seemed like they had made much better use of the offseason to prepare for this game compared to how Tampa Bay looked.
Greg, we just had Tom Korn on. I'm not sure if you heard him, but he said, and I agree with him, more surprised at how bad the defense played than how maybe bad rookie quarterback Jameis Winston played. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, no, absolutely. Like I said, if you had said going into this that Winston throws for whatever it was, 210 and 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, it's probably about what you expect.
Right.
But if you said that the Bucs defense would give up 42 points essentially in 3 quarters, people thought, the Titans were a very low-scoring team last year. I don't think they scored more than 28 in any game in all of last year. That's what's concerning. And again, it's a lot of the familiar things we've talked about. It's not getting pressure from the defensive line, not getting off the field on 3rd down, not taking advantage of takeaways when you get a ball in your hand. It's problems we've talked about, and I think they had hoped by bringing in more people familiar with this defense, it would change the end of the story, but it hasn't yet.
Greg, to your point there, Mariota actually led the Titans to score more points in the first half, which was 35, than they did in any game last season.
Yeah, that's impressive.
When you look at that, this is a rookie quarterback, number 2 in the draft. He was the guy everybody slept on because Jameis was supposed to be the guy who was going to completely change this organization and be the franchise quarterback. And now you look at Marcus Mariota, and he performs in a way that I don't think anybody saw coming. Where do we go from here? Marcus Mariota put it bluntly, and he just said, we're moving on to the next game. Yeah, but you're moving on to the next game with a nice W.
And they're playing the Browns.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Yeah, that's all they can do. You kind of have to have a short memory in the NFL in that, Love you talked at the game about how if you're not careful, if you think too much about one loss, it becomes 2. So they've got to just forget this happened. I think they'll watch the tape today. They'll go over it. But they got to wipe the slate clean. They have to start from scratch this week. New Orleans is a team that just lost to Arizona, gave up, 427 yards, gave up 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. The Bucs took the Saints to overtime last year in New Orleans. So it's a team they can hang with, but they have to play so much better than they did this first week for that to be any kind of conversation here coming up on Sunday.
Greg, I know you got to get going. You have a podcast you need to record here in a little bit, but I just want to ask you one question heading into the Saints. Do you think if the Bucs lose next week in New Orleans, people are pushing the panic button now? What do you think it's going to be next week if they don't beat Drew Brees in the Saints?
Yeah, more of the same. It's just going to add momentum is the problem. And looking at the schedule, you kind of knew they had 2 on the road after the 1 at home. So if you don't win that first game, then you have to go to New Orleans. Now you have to go to Houston. Houston's coming off a disappointing loss. So you got these hungry teams you're going to be facing here the next 2 weeks. And that's just to get you back here to Tampa in week 4. So, again, as was the case last year and the year before, getting that first win, getting that pressure released from that is a huge burden for a team early on. So they've got to figure out a way, whether it's one of the next 2. If they're 0-2 and they come back here, I think it'll impact the crowd. I think it'll impact a lot of things. This team can very quickly go back to not being a nationally relevant team. They have a window here with Winston where people care about them in a way they haven't cared about this team in a couple of years. but they'll lose that very quickly, and this will be like, Oakland and Derek Carr or any of these other teams that has a promising quarterback, but he gets obscured because the team just isn't competitive.
Well, Greg, I appreciate your insight. Thanks for calling in. I'll see you over at $1 later on this afternoon, and we'll talk to you again next week here on The Plank.
All right, thanks guys for having me.
All right, thanks, Greg. All right, let's go to some post-game sound that we caught up with Jameis Winston and Lovie Smith afterwards last night. Obviously, you heard from Tom and Greg. Somber locker room, not very happy, which is expected, losing 42-14. But here's what Lovie Smith and Jameis Winston had to say about last night's bad loss.
That's definitely not how we wanted to start our football season. I thought we were ready to go, had good practices, but you need to get to the first game to see exactly where you are. We're not there yet. Disappointing, of course, for us, but we have to keep this in perspective. We're very disappointed.
Can't put us behind the 8 ball like that. It's just something to learn from. You can't get behind. You can't do that to your defense. We can't give our fans that. On the home opener. I can't perform like that on the home opener. But we will get better. I will perform better.
And Jameis Winston better perform better going into next week with the Saints. Don't you have to agree and surprise in your estimation on how bad they played? You and I were texting during the game, Laura. We were surprised.
It was bad. And not only was it bad, and I don't want to put it all on Jameis Winston.
Because it's not all his fault. You can only expect a rookie quarterback to do so much, especially in his first game.
Exactly. But I just saw so many breakdowns in that game. I mean, look at these stats right here. We're talking about the fact that not only did they just get blown out, but Mariota, look at his numbers. 10 of 13, 209 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns. Jameis Winston struggling just to complete a pass. Yeah. It was very interesting.
Yeah, Winston 16 of 13 or 16 of 33. Not you'd see him get well over 200 yards through the air. You kind of expect the interceptions at this point. We've seen it at Florida State, but it's the defense that did not help. The other thing, too, I don't know if you noticed on there, the penalties, definitely not good either.
We were in the red zone twice. Yeah. Red zone twice, and then you get 2 penalties. I think both of them were holding.
Right.
There was an offensive pass interference on Vincent Jackson in the end zone. These are the things that you need to make sure you're taking care of the football.
And when you're getting blown out like that, you're going to get in the heat of the moment. You're going to maybe lose focus, and you're going to make some silly penalties at some point. 12 penalties for the Buccaneers for 97 yards. Definitely not worth or expected, especially under Lovie Smith. Remember, we want to hear from you guys. You can tweet us at the hashtag #ThePlank on Twitter. You can tweet at Laura Harris, and you can also tweet at John Sable, John_Sable on Twitter as well.
And we also are tweeting.
It's a segment we always did last year on The Plank. We're doing it again this year. It's who's going to be walking the plank. Now, Laura, we didn't get a chance to put you in a nice pirate outfit.
You shouldn't have.
But next time when you're filling in, we're going to do it, and it's going to look fantastic. But we want to know from you guys, who do you think should walk the plank? We have a lot of different candidates that could walk the plank this week. It's a pretty cool animation we have later in the show, but who could it be? Candidates, Jameis Winston maybe, Lovie Smith.
The whole team?
The offensive line. See, the thing is we can't put the whole team on there, Laura, because
it's just one.
The plank can't hold all of them.
I understand.
So it's a weight issue, so it's just one guy.
I tell you what, though, like you just said, that O-line. And they're young, too. That was kind of one of the things that I noticed as well. It's like, Jameis Winston gets sacked twice, but at the same time, these guys just kind of, this is what I was seeing a lot of. Hands everywhere and not a lot of
blocking. 2 rookies, Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet. It could be a long season, hopefully not too long.
Let's hope not.
All right, this is how you guys can connect with us. On Twitter, join the conversation using the hashtag #ThePlank. Tweet at John_Sable. That's my handle. Here's Laura Harris, WFTS. That's hers. Also, we're going to take some of your phone calls, too. 813-878-2888. 813-878-2888. You're watching The Plank on ABCActionNews.com.